Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie and today I'm joined by Brian Atkinson, Vice President and General Manager EMEA at Five9. Brian, it's great to have you join us. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Charlie, and great to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to have another conversation. I think, we've talked about lots of very interesting topics before, and today we're going to focus on kind of AI and self-service. And I think first things first, it'd be interesting to kind of assess the current kind of climate in terms of self-service and the current need for self-service. Kind of where do you think that it's driving most value kind of in the customer experience at the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've definitely seen a change in customer service over the past few years. Given the pandemic, we've kind of gone through and also a lot of investment in digital channels over the past 5 to 6 years as well. And so I think we've seen a lot of the population become more and more have more and more expectations around self-service that you get kind of from a digital perspective. But what's interesting is that being said, really, we just did a survey last year of six countries here in Europe and the UK, and 50% of contacts are still on the voice channel. And so I guess what I'm seeing is that really a lot of the value around self-service these days is continuing to do what we've been doing for the past 6 to 7 years, right? Continuing to invest in those digital channels, making sure that they're more linked up, and we can talk about journeys and all that kind of stuff in a second, but really focusing on the voice channel and self-service voice. I think that's a really untapped market, and that's where a lot of our customers are seeing the biggest value today. So.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think your answer there kind of alludes to the fact that self-service takes on many forms as well. And I think, maybe we can first kind of consider a more traditional self-service portal. How is AI kind of enhancing the performance of that sort of self-service?
Yeah. So from my kind of just the traditional self-service portal, I think, again, it's been a very kind of siloed experience over the last 5 or 6 years, right? So you've had really good experiences, a lot better experiences than you had 10 years ago, coming in through a chat mechanism or maybe through an SMS or a WhatsApp experience. But typically those experiences differ than the treatment you would potentially get in a voice channel. So it's kind of a siloed experience. Maybe the knowledge base information that self-service portal is accessing is different than the knowledge base that the agent is using. So it's still kind of been very siloed experiences. And what we're starting to see is, how do you open that up so that you actually have a very consistent experiences across channels. And so AI helps us do that in many ways, because on the back end, we've now got better access to data. A lot of companies have data consolidation projects going, or data lake. We've got the cloud systems from a contact center perspective that are more nimble and agile. And so you combine those two things together, and you can start to get really relevant insights on the back end with through analytics and through AI. And you can start to leverage some of the workflow and automation capabilities that today's cloud contact center platforms provide us. Put those two together, and now you can start to supercharge really that kind of portal, that self-service environment for yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of interesting kind of use cases almost that you kind of described in there, and I think kind of another separate use case in itself, obviously, of self-service is conversational AI. Such as kind of chatbots and voice bots. So it's kind of, how is the evolution of AI technology, such as maybe natural language understanding, machine learning, robotic process automation, kind of helping to improve kind of more traditional chatbots?
Yeah. So we see it really as a kind of a phase, right? So again, there was this kind of era of let's focus in on the digital, and we saw chatbots get better. You had some really frustrating experiences, and in today's world, typically you find pretty decent experiences. But from some of the technologies you mentioned, conversational AI, natural language understanding, some of those types of newer technologies, or some newer technologies, but technologies that have been really advancing quite rapidly. This is where, if I go back to kind of my first point around the voice side of things, this is where it gets really exciting, because the IVR itself has been around for many years, and in a way, an IVR has tried to become a self-service portal in some instances, and it's a very frustrating experience. You and I know that like voice conversation is the most natural way that humans really communicate across the globe, and it's typically the best, right? Face to face, just natural language. You get into an IVR, a traditional IVR that we've had in this world for 20, 30 years, and it completely destroys that experience, right? So press one for this, press two for that, and it's just a nightmare to be able to provide a good customer experience around the channel that should be the best, right? The channel that should be the best should be the voice. That's where we can communicate most effectively. And so what we're really seeing, I guess, to summarize here, this is that a lot of things around natural language understanding, the technology's advanced so much that being able to open an IVR with what would you like to do today, have that natural language processing power that's very flexible and easy to access today, more cost effective than it has ever been in the past, more accurate than it ever has been in the past, and then get that caller to the right person as quick as possible, or get them to a self-service application that can do things like change of address, or that can move appointments in a very simple and effective way, because those are the type of routine tasks that really we don't want a lot of our agents handling. We had a customer just recently that over the first 10 months they had about 40,000 call deflections that were a positive from implementing some IVA or intelligent virtual agent technology. And those 40,000 call deflections really saved the company about $2.2 million in the cost of the 36 agents that it would have taken to handle those queries. And it improved their customer experience at the same time because they were having high abandon rates and they were having long caller hold times as well. So you start to look at kind of self-service, not just in the digital channel, but I think we're seeing really that all the technology is coming together now to be able to make it a very powerful self-service portal in the voice space.
Yeah, I think there's lots of really great examples. I really love the idea of kind of a voice bot replacing the IVR as well, and almost kind of routing it and also almost just kind of answering the questions there and then right up front without any sort of customer navigation, which we all, as customers, we all struggle with. And I think there's kind of lots of great examples that you shared there. And another kind of new self-service, newish self-service trend I really kind of want to pick your brains on is proactive customer service as well, kind of as a means of proactively solving customer issues. How is AI helping contact centers and companies more generally to evolve a proactive customer strategy?
Yeah, to me, proactive customer care is all about knowing your customer, right? You need to know what your customer wants. They want to know, you want to know how they want to be communicated to, and you always need to try to think ahead, like be one step ahead of them to know, what are they calling me about, or what potentially would they have a problem, right? That if I reached out to them and let them know that, hey, this was happening, that they would appreciate. So for me, it is about kind of predictive things, and that's where AI gets a lot of value, right? And this goes into the world of big data, and this is obviously been a trend over the last few years of how do we consolidate the data inside of organization. In fact, our largest customer here in the UK of about 5,000 agents, doing a big data consolidation project around getting rid of those siloed data. And the whole point of that is to be able to run analytics and run AI processes on top of that data to surface a better view of the customer. And this gets into that proactive customer care. Then you layer on some of the great automation technologies that a cloud contact center can provide, and you start to say, okay, well, if we start to see these two or three trends across our data through the use of simple APIs and cloud technologies, automate some of those tasks. So if this happens, right, if we see a balance getting close to a limit, a very simple analysis, but like send an SMS, right? And so that's that's the contact center accessing data based upon an event or a condition that they see inside of data. Now, Obviously, it's more important now with AI to be able to look across 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 different data sets to be able to say, okay, because we've seen these 5 trends, this is probably the most likely outcome. So whether it's proactive reaching out, or whether it's just being proactive on the front end of a call or calling in, hey, we noticed that you just placed an order. You happen to be calling about that, right? That's a real simple one. So like real simple use cases that like, I forget who I called today, but I made a phone call today and they said, we noticed you just placed an order. Would you like, or is that what you're calling about? And yes, that was exactly what I was calling about, right? And I just like that, they know me, right? They've taken the customer or the business I was calling has taken the time to put the thought in to think about me. And that's what's really important.
Yeah, again, lots of really interesting points there. And I think, the stressing of the understanding your customers and building almost that data lake that you were talking about is very interesting. And it reminds me of a kind of similar use case and proactivity that I've seen where kind of a company use their data collection to predict customer sentiment and then ran a retention scheme where they were proactively contact their customers who their data sets might potentially leave fairly soon. I think there's lots of great use cases like that, and I think those tips as well that I mentioned of kind of that you gave of understanding your customer are very relevant to my next question actually, and it is kind of what tips would you give to an organization looking to supercharge their self-service strategy?
Yeah, definitely. One I would say, think in a nimble fashion, right? Be nimble and be agile. So I think, gone are the days that you should have these heavy, professional services types of engagements that last, for a year or two and millions of pounds. So I think nimble, right? Think about the out of the box. So today, a lot of companies that we work with are not really interested in like massive amounts of customizations. Like, what can you do for me out of the box? Because as soon as you kind of start to get into that heavy customization, that kills kind of your nimbleness, right? So think APIs, think out of the box, think leveraging the experience of people in the industry. I think that's really key as well. I heard that from a customer session that I did the other day with one of our customers here in the UK. They said, in hindsight, we wish we would have moved faster, and we wish we would have listened, been more open-minded to, people in the industry that have years and years of experience. One of their big things was they said, unfortunately, we were, kind of siloed in our thinking and said, oh, we just want to do like for like we want to just replicate what we're doing today as we move from on-premise to cloud. And from that perspective, it was actually their hindsight was like, actually, that would have been a perfect time to take a step back, reevaluate our IVR strategy, right? Could we be adopting some really simple natural language technology that's out of the box to really enhance the customer experience, instead of just swapping from an on-premise system to a cloud system? So those are a couple key things. I think the last thing I would probably just close with is ultimately listening to your customer. So what is your voice of the customer saying? And I think that's always a really important point. As we start to think about it from an overall CX perspective, every industry is different. Every business model is different, and everything doesn't always suit every single organization. So the important thing there is listen to your customer, go back to your business strategy, and marry those two things together, and then start to layer on some practical AI use cases. And with that, I think we'll start to see an even greater change of customer experience across the industry.
Yeah, I think there's 3 really interesting points there. Obviously, kind of your first point of kind of remaining nimble and agile, and then obviously the second point as well of kind of adopting more kind of out the box tools to maybe innovate a bit quicker as well and stay ahead of the game. And I know Five9's got a kind of great selection of kind of low code AI and automation tools too. And that voice of the customer is very interesting too, because once you implement self-service systems, I guess they're not something that you can just kind of leave. You've kind of got to update them as the company evolves over time. And I think that's kind of an interesting question as well. Of how can companies future-proof their self-service solutions? Do you have any ideas for how a company might go about doing that?
Yeah, I think non-customization is really critical for for future proofing, right? If you get a lot of the contact centers that we see today that are moving away from on-premise to cloud of such massive amounts of configuration that we've had to create specialized tools that goes out and pulls all of that configuration data to make it easy to migrate. So I think that helps future-proof things, right? Use open standards and APIs and all the things that actually in today's world in 2022 is very easy and straightforward to do. So I think that helps future-proof things, and then also making sure that you're leveraging really solutions that are accepted globally and world renowned. So one of the things that we do here at Five9, for example, is that we have a really simple studio interface that lets you access services from Google or access services from Microsoft Louis or Microsoft or IBM Watson. And so the people that are innovating around natural language and conversational AI are the organizations that have access to billions and billions and billions and billions of transactions a day. And so, being able to do easily be able to switch from, hey, I want to use Google's services today for natural language, but maybe next year I want to switch to IBM's because maybe they've got slightly better capabilities in this area that we really like for our business. That type of flexibility is really key, and that's, I guess, just something I would challenge. I guess people looking at new technology today is say, how flexible is the solution, and how so out of the box, non-customized, and flexibility to be able to move and adapt, and be agile in the future is really key.
Yes, as you were saying, I think flexibility is really kind of the key word there. And you mentioned some of the tools that Five9 have. Where can kind of the viewers go to kind of find out a little bit more about these?
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, more than happy to have conversations with anybody who's watching this. So you can easily find me on LinkedIn, Brian Atkinson, and so I'm happy to have a conversation. But by all means, I'm sure they can reach out through CX today as well, and we'd be happy to have conversations. So
excellent. Yeah, I think that's a great place to end today's chat. Thank you very much for joining me, though, Brian. Learned a lot.
Great. Thanks, Charlie. Good to see you again.
Excellent. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye for now, and see you again soon.